Now that we have a more complex application running with multiple containers, let's modify this a little bit to allow for more efficient local development. So currently, if we wanted to make a change to this application, such as change the HTML file to change maybe some text or some JavaScript code down below, what we would have to do is we would have to edit the file, quit Docker Compose, and then rerun Docker Compose using the build flag in order to rebuild the Docker image with all the files. Now, this would be very tedious if we were developing an app locally and needed quicker results without having to actually build an entire image. Well, we can get around this by combining some Docker concepts and implementing them in this Docker Compose file. So what we're going to do is we're going to implement three different things. We are going to create a container that will install some dependencies into a folder called node modules within this directory. This will be the source of all of the dependencies for local development. That way we don't have to keep running npm install over and over again. I'm going to delete that before we get started. Another thing we're going to do is we are going to take this web service and we're going to mount a data volume. That way any changes to any of the files will be reflected in the container. Then lastly, we're going to run the web service with a different command. We're going to specify a command that'll listen for file changes and then restart that application server whenever a file changes. That way our developer feedback loop should be pretty quick. It'll take just a matter of seconds to see changes that we've made locally. So first thing, let's go ahead and create that container to install dependencies. I'm going to create a service. It's going to be called npm install. And the goal of this is it's just going to use Node to read this package.json file and then install the dependencies. Pretty similar to what our Docker Compose file does. To do so, I'm going to specify the node 8 Alpine image. And then I'm going to override the command by using the command key. And the command is just going to be npm install. Now, in order to know what to install and where to install it, we need to do a couple of things. We need to first off specify a data volume using the volumes key. We're going to mount the current working directory to user source app. And then lastly, we need to specify a working directory user source app so that this npm install command runs in the correct location. So let's go ahead and test that out. We're going to go to the terminal, and instead of Docker Compose up, we're going to use Docker Compose run and then the name of the service. And this will only run that npm install service. We'll see that we have some output and it is installing some packages for us. Now, once that's done, we should have a folder that will pop up here called node modules, and that'll have all the dependencies needed for our application. Let's let that finish up. All right, looks like we're good. So now that all of our dependencies and files are in this folder, we're going to then mount this folder as a data volume for our web service. We can do so by adding a data volume in our web service right here. So we're going to do volumes, and it'll be the exact same volume as down here. So the working directory mounted to user source app, and that'll mount the volume. And then another thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have that command to watch for file changes. Now I already specified that in package.json. We'll see that we have another script called dev start. And instead of using node to run the server, it's going to use nodemon, which is a nice little application that'll watch for file changes and then restart the server on file change. We can run that particular command by specifying the command and working directory keys. So I'll do that right below volumes. We'll put command npm run dev start, and then the working directory in which to run that command is going to be user source app. All right, let's go to the terminal window and test that out. We're going to use Docker Compose and run Docker Compose up. We're going to run this in the background. All right, now if I run Docker PS, it looks like those containers are running. I can go ahead and check the log output for, let's say the note-taking app by running Docker logs and then the container name. And we'll see that I have some logs showing up. I can also follow those logs by doing -f, and we'll see I have the logs showing up, and it will follow them as we make changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try making a change to our app. Well, first let me make sure it's running. Okay, our app is running. And I'm going to make a change to the index.html file under views. I'm going to take the notes h1 header, and we're going to change this to my notes. Now I'll see that this is being watched. If I refresh, we'll see that the HTML changes have been reflected. And it happens pretty quickly. I can just make a little change. I can change it back to notes, save, go over here and refresh, and I can see my changes immediately. That way, when I'm doing local development, I'll be able to develop at a quicker pace while still being able to run my application within Docker and Docker containers.